It is official. The Eagles have not one, but two new play callers, and today we'll break down everything you need to know, including whether or not these were the right hires. What is going on, everyone? Welcome into A to Z Philly, your number one home for Eagles coverage. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoy this content. Subscribe by hitting that red button down below. And be sure to hit the bell so you don't miss any of the off-season coverage. We'll be breaking everything you need to know down as we approach the coming months. RB back, bringing you the latest from the link. And the latest today is, wow, we finally got some news, some big breaking news, and they went double trouble on us. That is right. The Eagles have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. Were they the right hires, though? Eagle Nation, chime in down in the comments. Were these the right guys for the job? Well, I mean, it's kind of tough coming off a big journey to the big game. You know, obviously, guys were going to leave the staff. You're going to have to replace guys. There's free agents that are going to leave. But at the end of the day, you have to build that culture. And the guys you brought in have to be able to fit that culture. So we will break all of it down. And we'll give you a little more information about who these guys are. But anyway, before we get right into it, shout out to the sponsor here of today's show, BetMGM. Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code ATOZPA and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. Sign up today and use bonus code ATOZPA and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Pennsylvania only. New customer offer. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, let's jump right into it. So the big news breaking earlier today came one after the other. Adam Schefter summarizes it nice here on Twitter. The Eagles have now replaced Shane Steichen with Brian Johnson, the Eagles quarterback coach from this past year. And they went outside the box and they replaced Jonathan Gannon with Sean Desai. That is the new defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to start with Sean Desai because we kind of talked about Brian Johnson a little bit, and there's a lot more to get into as we go forward. But there is already a foundation. There's already a basis laid for Brian Johnson. There's more to add on, like I said, but we know who he is already, right? But who's Sean Desai? Defensive coordinator, and he comes over from the Seattle Seahawks as their associate head coach and defensive leading assistant this past year. But who is he? Who is Sean Desai? Well, here he is. The Eagles put out a nice post from him earlier. Welcome to Philadelphia. So let's start with his roots. Why not? Who is Sean Desai? Well, here he is, and this was an article from Temple. That is right. Sean Desai started his coaching career where? At Temple University. He has a little bit of the foundation, the understanding of the culture of the city, of the fan base. Look at him. Look at that pizzazz, man. All nice and dressed up here at Temple, and he's actually a graduate of the school as well. He had a doctorate, as it says here, in educational administration. He was an adjunct professor. Then he went on to coach for the school. So this is a smart guy. At least he has some smarts to him. And after Temple, he went to the NFL. He was with the Chicago Bears for a long time, about 7-8 years, bounced around a couple different positions. He was a safeties coach, and then he ended up getting bumped up to the defensive coordinator. And what did he do? Well, he showed out in Chicago in 2021. And let's not let it be forgotten here that he is a Vic Fangio disciple. Vic Fangio making his way in Chicago, and Sean Desai learned a lot under him. But before we talk a little bit more about him, I want to hear what Emmanuel Acho here has to say on Twitter, because his brother Sam Acho actually played under Sean Desai, so he has a firsthand experience of what the guy's like. And let's hear what he has to say.
Count it. Eagles got the defensive coordinator that they needed in Sean Desai. Who is Sean Desai? I called my brother. My brother played for the Chicago Bears when Desai was a safeties coach. He said that Desai was a guy at halftime who was educating the players on the adjustments they needed to make. Who's Sean Desai? Remember, Desai was trained under Vic Fangio. Desai was a quality control coach for the Bears for 5 years. Remember, that part of the time Vic Fangio was there. Vic Fangio, one of the modern thought leaders of the modern 3-4 defense. Desai, beloved by the Seahawks. Pete Carroll was singing his praises at the NFL NFL Combine. Desai went to Temple, so you know he got them Philly roots, but got his master's degree at Columbia. A phenomenal teacher of the game of football. It's not just about what you know, it's about what you can get your athletes to know.
I agree 100%. It's what you can, relay to the players. You have to be, a coachable coach, right? You have to be able to take criticism and then also be able to lay down the law, right? You are leading a pack of men and, guys that are talented, right? That want to get back to the big game. You have to come in here and set your feet down right away. You got to imprint your strategy. And apparently, according to what Emmanuel Acho's brother said, who was a player under Desai, this is exactly the type of guy he is. He can relate to his players. He can, he can coordinate certain things, but he can also, make good adjustments if things aren't going well, and he can relay certain information, and he's a good communicator, good mentor. These are all the things you like to hear for a defensive coordinator. And one thing I like is that he's actually been a coordinator, unlike Jonathan Gannon, who, when he came over for the Colts, part of, the Colts coaching staff, and Nick Sirianni brought him over. He wasn't really experienced in that realm, right? He wasn't used to having the main duties. He was an associate head coach. I've seen some different things today talking about, whether they actually utilize his defensive techniques or not. A lot of people said they didn't, but, Seattle had like a midway defense, really not that good. But let's be honest, they didn't have a lot of personnel either. In Chicago, they had a top 5 defense in 2021, and they didn't really have the talent to have a top 5 defense, right? He outcoached some of the talent. They were probably about average, I would say. I mean, they had a couple nice playmakers, but hey, man, he's able to coach up talent. As it says here, he's coached under the smartest defensive minds like Vic Fangio and some others. He's also the first Indian American to serve as a coordinator, so shout out to him for creating more opportunity. Here's what Pete Carroll said about him the other day. He said, quote, "We had a great time. He's really a brilliant football guy. The background and the information he holds, his access to the information is really special. He helped us get going a ton and make a year's transition." And everything else you hear about this guy is really good. Here's what Nick Sirianni said after the season. He says, "I really believe in the explosive play differential." And they had multiple interviews with Sean Desai. So, they're trying to, express a philosophy. Here's what you have to do. Here's what Gannon didn't do that you need to do. Here's why we lost the Super Bowl. You need to be able to accumulate pressure on a quarterback and utilize these weapons to the best ability possible. And not saying that Gannon didn't. Obviously, the Eagles had a historic defense, but you had to make some plays in the biggest moment, in the biggest stage, and you just could not. So Desai coming in, and he's got to be able to fill some of these shoes. So again, not a lot of us know a lot about Sean Desai, but from what we're hearing, it's good that this guy can communicate, help his players, and he has learned under some of the best, and he has some experience as a coordinator. Sean Desai is going to have a lot more talent here than he had in Chicago or Seattle. I mean, I don't even know who was on the Seahawks defensive line, and now the Eagles have a bunch of playmakers and might be adding more this offseason. So I can't wait to see how it plays out. In terms of Brian Johnson, though, let's talk about him. By the way, Howie Roseman had a press conference today, and he said they didn't want to extend players during the season because they were concerned about the dynamic it could create in a championship season, but essentially saying now it's go time. Now they're going to bring in people, obviously have some draft picks to play with. Howie Roseman's not playing around. I'm telling you, I said this in his first press conference a couple weeks ago. He looks serious, man. He is about to get this Eagles team back to where they need to go. Nick Sirianni also talked today about Brian Johnson, who is the Eagles' new offensive coordinator. He'll be calling the plays. Here's a great story from Kendall Beck on Twitter. This kind of sums it up perfectly. So Brian Johnson, has a close relationship with Jalen Hurts. They go way, way back. The relationship dates back to when Hurts was 4 years old. Hurts' dad coached Brian Johnson in high school. Then Johnson was trying to recruit Hurts to play at Mississippi State and Florida 10 years later, but Hurts went to Alabama. And now you flip the tide. Hurts is, trying to get Brian Johnson to come back. Johnson was a great play caller at Florida. He probably could have had a couple other college jobs. He decides to reunite with Jalen Hurts, keep those ties going, and look where he's at now, bumped up to an offensive coordinator, maybe eventually a head coach if he does his thing. But the number one thing people are saying is that Brian Johnson had his fingertips all over Jalen Hurts. He had his DNA all over that improvement from year 1 to year 2, and that is huge. And you look at all the little steps Jalen Hurts said, obviously he put in the work, but all the little things that go into kind of coaching up a guy and bringing out the best of him, his best ability, and really just making him into a leader. You know, Brian Johnson is the perfect guy, to be able to do this, and he did. He was a big part of it last year, and that's why I think this is a really good hire. Hiring from within has shown to be very successful recently in the Philadelphia sports world. Just look across all the sports. And plus, this guy was here. He was a part of the journey. He was a part of the DNA, the blueprint to getting to the big game. And now he understands what it takes. Yes, he's a first-time play caller in the NFL, but who better to do it with than a guy like Jalen Hurts? And I think this is a great hire. Rather than going outside, bringing in kind of a different philosophy, Johnson was here with Steichen, with Sirianni. He knows what the Eagles are exactly trying to do, and he knows the tendencies of Jalen Hurts. I'm excited about it. I really do think it's going to be good. I think Hurts will trust him, and yeah, I think Brian Johnson is going to do a heck of a job. I really do, and I just think that the Eagles went out and they thought about this the right way, and I think that they made the smartest hires based on who was available. It wasn't easy, losing both coordinators, but I think they muscled down. They did everything they could to get Vance Joseph. He couldn't come here, or he didn't want to. He went to the Broncos, and the Eagles said, all right, we're going to go get a guy who coached under a really successful coach, and we're going to hire from within a guy that our franchise quarterback, has a lot of trust in. So I think it's perfect. Nick Sirianni had a couple comments on Brian Johnson today. He said, he's a sharp dude. I lean on him for so many different things. Now he's in charge of running the offense. Nick Sirianni also mentions that Brian Johnson was already involved in the first 15, the red zone offense, the third down. So he understands the ins and outs of the offense, the weapons that the Eagles have. It's not like you're taking a drastic change here for a team that had a really prolific offense and helping them get to the big game. They got who they wanted, and they should. They should get priority based on how good the team was. And, this is a really good job opening, right? So guys, buckle down, and I'm excited to see kind of where it goes. But those are just my thoughts. Brian Johnson and Sean Desai are the new coordinators of the Philadelphia Eagles under Nick Sirianni. What do you make of the hires? How successful will they be? What else do you feel about these guys? We'll break it down more as we go forward, but give me all of your thoughts down below in the comments section. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Like always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.